helping professions? About 5 or 6. So like therapists and coaches and what else?
I'm a speech pathologist.
Speech pathology, excellent. With what?
Singles.
Singles.
Adult singles.
People who are not in relationship.
Right.
Okay. Just want to clarify what that was. Single what? Okay. And what about you?
Myself?
Yeah.
I'm a Catholic priest, so I use in pastoral work here.
In a pastoral. Excellent. Excellent. And how many of you in sort of the business world? Lots of business people. Not that therapists aren't business people, but it doesn't quite look the same. So managers, executives, salespeople, tell me a little bit. Who are you? Who are you?
Well, right now I'm at FedEx Courier.
Courier?
I'm going to go a different direction.
Okay.
Because of this.
All right.
Unemployed right now.
Unemployed, transition, excellent.
I trade stocks and I'm going into a new business.
Trade stocks, new business. Who else?
Teach English.
Teach English, okay, education. Who else?
Commercial.
Real estate broker, excellent. Did you?
Window washer.
Window washer, very nice. Who else? Not business. So what are we left out? Performing arts, creative arts. Sorry?
Student.
Student. Okay, excellent. And what about you? Is it Monet?
I'm transition.
Transition. Good. And did we get yours, Oliver?
I own 3 small businesses.
3 small businesses. Excellent. All right. Nice. Okay. So lots of
I am medical doctor and manager and health educator.
medical doctor. Excellent. Excellent. Isn't it amazing how many different people come to NLP? I mean, the application is just so widespread. There's so many possibilities. Okay. Let's see. Where do we want to go next? How about a little lesson from geese? We're going to be exploring metaphor tomorrow, so I thought I'd get a head start. Lessons from the geese, this is called. It's about the greater collective and how we learn from each other. As each bird flaps its wings, it creates an uplift for the bird following. Flying in a V formation, the whole flock adds 71% greater flying range than if the bird flew alone. The lesson for us: people who share a common direction and sense of community can get where they're going quicker and easier because they are traveling on the thrust of one another. Whenever a goose falls out of formation, it suddenly feels the drag and resistance of trying to fly alone, and quickly gets back into formation to take advantage of the lifting power of the bird immediately in front. The lesson for us: if we have as much sense as a goose, we will stay in formation with those who are headed where we want to go, and will be willing to accept their help, as well as give ours to others. When the lead goose gets tired, it rotates back into formation, and another goose flies at the point position. The lesson for us: it pays to take turns doing the hard tasks and sharing the leadership. With people, as with geese, we are interdependent on each other. The geese in formation honk from behind to encourage those up front to keep up their speed. The lesson: we need to make sure our honking from behind is encouraging. When a goose gets sick or wounded or is shot down, 2 geese drop out of formation and follow it down to help and protect it. They stay with it until it is able to fly again or dies. Then they launch out on their own with another formation, or they catch up with the flock. If we have as much sense as geese, we too will stand by each other in difficult times, as well as when we are strong. And the final one: why is it that in the V formation, one side's always longer than the other? Because there are more geese on that side. Okay. Let's go into ecology, how about? Let's see if this is the right page or not. All right. So this is something that I'm not sure you've seen yet, but it begins to put together sort of how NLP fits together. You've learned a lot of techniques, which you find here in the middle. That's sort of the simplest thing that you're doing, is the technique itself. And yet we've really focused on techniques, haven't we, in the training? Yeah? You've learned a lot of techniques. Why is that? What do techniques do for you? They change things. Do they? Does the technique change things?
Gives you options.
More choices.
It gives you a structure, gives you a ritual, gives you a process in order to help the change to occur. Right? It also helps you to learn. I mean, how many classes in school were you in where you actually got to do experiential things? PE. Physical education, yeah. But not much else, right? Wood shop, PE, art class. But this, we're doing very cognitive work, but we're turning it into application. Trying to help you get it into your bodies by experiencing it. How can you learn rapport without doing it? How can you learn sensory acuity without watching, without listening? We can tell you what it is, but until you do it, you won't become good at it, right? So that's what the techniques are all about. Ecology is a frame that you've heard already, a little bit, about what ecology is. Ecology is built into many of the techniques. It's also part of the outcome frame. When you're trying to get a well-formed outcome, what stops you? That's an ecology question. What's there that's preventing you from making this change? Personal ecology is what we're talking about when we use the ecology in NLP. Of course, it's often used about world ecology, right? But we're talking about our personal ecology. What's going to help to make this change occur is discovering all the objections, all the resistances, all the hidden agendas, all the secondary gains that are going on inside of us. And so that's why we have to make sure that ecology is addressed before we do a technique. That helps us to make sure that the outcome is actually going to be worth having, is actually going to be achievable. Does that make sense? The ecology is like making sure that anything that's resisting or objecting inside of us is addressed. Okay? And then, of course, we have rapport on the very outside of this frame, because we need to have that. We need to be able to be in connection with somebody. I also feel that rapport is often down in here, too, in technique, in the sense that we need to have rapport with ourselves during a process, Because if we're dealing with conflict inside of ourselves around making a change, it's probably not going to be made. Yeah? And then, I think there's a final one, which is ecology again, which is around the whole process. The ecology of the relationship that we're in with somebody. Is it a win-win situation? Or is it about, I get something and you don't? Or you get something and I don't, right? That doesn't work in a system. That's going to create conflict. So you have to consider the ecology of the whole experience as well as the ecology of the outcome. Okay? Any questions about that so far? Okay. So ecology. Personal ecology, a person's boundaries. What's good for them, or useful, effective, efficient. You've done a lot of eliciting of outcomes during this training. You've explored a lot of techniques. And you've really looked at ecology without maybe really focusing on it. And so that's what we're going to spend this morning doing. Because without ecology, without dealing with the objections, without dealing with the resistances, without dealing with the secondary gain or the hidden agenda, like for example in 6-step reframing, the part is not going to make the change, right, unless the ecology is addressed, unless you deal with the objections. You're all madly writing. So it comes in many forms. Do you know what I mean when I say secondary gain? Did you hear that term during 6-step reframing? Coaches? No, they didn't hear it. So some of you are familiar with what it means. Secondary gain is wanting to get something.
We get something else.
What's that?
We get something else in addition to this thing.
You get something else in addition. So if I'm trying to make a change and I've got a secondary gain for what I'm already doing, I need to address that. If I don't address that secondary gain, then I'm probably not going to be able to make the change. So for example, smoking. Right? What does smoking do for you? Well, it could help you to relax. It could help you to socialize. It could help you to take a break during work. Right? So that could be referred to as positive intention, the positive intent of that part of the smoke, the part that causes you to smoke. So that's the gain that's being achieved. That's in the background often. And so just trying to quit without having a way to still get that gain often holds it in place. Make sense? So part of getting the positive intention and dealing with objections is dealing with the ecology of the system. Making sure that you don't leave out anything positive. Another example is the conflict integration process. You had that, what, a couple, like last week or the week before? Or was it last week during reframing? Or yeah. So you've got this conflict going on inside of yourself. Each part of you, when they're in action, sort of violates the ecology of the other. Does that make sense? So for example, I had a client who had what he called his bohemian side, his wild side, his artistic side, which he denied a lot of the time because of his values around business and money making and material needs and security and all those kinds of things. So when he was on that side of himself, he was sort of violating the ecology of the other side, which was very artistic and exploratory and creative. And so when he was over here, he was violating the principles of this side. Make sense? So in a certain sense, the conflict integration process is dealing with the ecology of that system. How can we make sure that all the positive intentions of both sides are being accomplished so that the integration can take place? That makes sense? So you know that conflict will maintain itself unless you deal with those resistances against each other. And then you do that, and what happens? You have this real sense of alignment and congruency and clarity because you've really appreciated both and you've dealt with the ecology of both. Okay. The possible result, if you don't address these, is that first of all, it won't work. The change won't occur that you're trying to accomplish. You know, I want to exercise 6 times a week. Great goal. How many times do you exercise now? 0. Maybe some ecology there. Now if the person says, well, 5. Okay, that sounds a little more reasonable. Going from 5 to 6 is doable because you've already given yourself permission to exercise at all. Get that? So sometimes it's a chunk size issue, right? The person's trying to go too big, too fast, and that's a violation of ecology. Or I want to exercise 6 times a week. Well, do you do anything else in your life? Well, yeah, I have 3 businesses, and I have family, and I have my mother's living with me, and blah 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 blah. It's like exercise 6 times a week plus all of that.